All right, everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. We love picking out a really fascinating question from one of our amazing listeners, and today's no different.
Yeah, definitely a good one today.
Oh, yeah, it's one that really got me thinking, and I know it's something a lot of people are grappling with, so let's jump right in. The question is this: can we really tame technology,
Ooh, tame.
and specifically AI? And if we can, who gets to hold the reins?
Hmm.
Who's the tamer in this scenario?
Right, that's the big question, isn't it?
Huge. So I'm really excited to unpack all of this with you today. But before we get too deep into it, maybe we should start by defining what taming even means in this context. I mean, it's not like we're talking about housebreaking a puppy here.
Uh-huh. No, not quite. AI is a different beast.
Right.
And yeah, that metaphor of taming, it's tricky, right? Because what does it really mean when we're talking about something as complex and powerful as AI?
Yeah, I mean, are we talking about controlling AI, setting strict boundaries, or is it more about understanding it, guiding its development so it aligns with our values?
I think it's a blend of all those things. There's definitely an element of control. We need to think about establishing rules and regulations, almost like creating a set of traffic laws for the AI world.
Interesting analogy.
Yeah.
So like traffic laws.
Exactly. We need guidelines to prevent accidents and chaos, you know, make sure everyone's playing by the same rules. A good example of this in action is the European Union's AI Act. Have you heard about that?
Oh, yeah, that's been in the news a lot lately.
Right. It's a really ambitious attempt to regulate AI development and use Kerman. It categorizes different AI applications based on their risk level and sets rules for things like data transparency and human oversight.
So that's on the regulatory side. Well, what about the ethical dimension?
Oh, absolutely. Ethics is crucial. We have to ensure AI is used for good, not for harm. There are some encouraging developments on this front. Several tech companies are developing ethical frameworks to guide their AI development. For example, some companies are setting guidelines for facial recognition technology to prevent its misuse for things like mass surveillance.
That's good to hear. But it brings up another question. Who gets to decide these rules? It can't just be one group calling all the shots, right?
You're hitting on a key point here. Who controls AI is a question with multiple answers. It depends on which aspect of control we're talking about. Let's start with development. Who's actually building these AI systems?
Yeah, that's a good starting point.
Yeah.
Who are the architects of this AI world we're talking about?
Well, it's a mix of players. We have tech companies, big and small research institutions, and sometimes governments, too. They're all contributing to building the algorithms, which are basically like instructions for the AI. And of course, they're creating the data sets, which are like the textbooks AI learns from.
Right, so that's like feeding information into the AI brain. But then there's also the question of access, right? Not everyone has the same opportunities to use or even learn about AI.
Exactly. Access is a massive piece of this puzzle. And this is where the digital divide comes into play. Someone living in a rural community with limited internet access might not have the same opportunities to use or learn about AI as someone in a major tech hub.
That's a really important point. And then, of course, there's the whole regulatory landscape, which feels like a constant balancing act.
It really is. Trying to find that sweet spot between encouraging innovation and preventing potential harm. It's like walking a tightrope. If regulations are too strict, they could stifle creativity and progress. But if they're too lax, well, we could see some unintended consequences.
Definitely a delicate balance to strike.
Mm.
And speaking of unintended consequences, it feels like every time I open a news website, there's another article about the potential dangers of AI, job displacement, algorithmic bias, even the possibility of AI becoming uncontrollable.
Yeah, the media plays a powerful role in shaping public perception of AI. And those narratives, whether positive or negative, they really seep into our collective consciousness and can even influence policy decisions.
It's true. Just think about how science fiction has portrayed AI over the years. Movies like The Terminator or Ex Machina paint a pretty stark picture of the potential downsides.
Right, those dystopian visions can really stick with people. But on the flip side, you also have movies and TV shows that present a more optimistic view of AI, where it's helping humanity solve complex
It's
problems.
funny you mentioned that because just the other day, my music app recommended a song I absolutely loved.
Mhm.
It made me realize how seamlessly AI is already woven into our lives, often without us even realizing it. Which makes me wonder, are we already letting those Hollywood narratives shape our relationship with AI without even knowing it?
That's a thought-provoking question, and it brings us back to that question of control. Do you feel in control of the technology you use every day?
Honestly, sometimes yes and sometimes no. I mean, I choose which apps I download, which devices I use, but then I find myself scrolling endlessly on social media like I'm on autopilot, and it makes you wonder who's really in the driver's seat, me or the algorithm.
It's that awareness, that mindfulness that's crucial because these technologies are only going to become more integrated into our lives. So it's more important than ever to be conscious of how we're interacting with them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today, but before we wrap up this deep dive, is there one final thought you'd like to leave with our listeners?
Instead of getting fixated on this idea of taming AI, which implies this kind of adversarial relationship, maybe we should be thinking more about collaboration. How can we shape AI's development so it enhances our lives and doesn't dictate them? What kind of future do you want to see with AI, and what role will you play in creating it? It's up to all of us to think critically and engage in these conversations.
I love that. A partnership, not a power struggle. It's a powerful reminder that we all have a role to play in shaping the future of AI. So to all our listeners out there, keep those questions coming. Keep those conversations going. And join us next time for another deep dive into the world of technology and its impact on our lives.